This is a story about seeking truth and finding it. Accidentally, a pot brownie caught me in a blank daze, my thoughts so intricate, my body and identity so lifeless and easily amused. This opposition was important, so I found a pen and paper and wrote about it. It felt prophetic. I became obsessed with writing high thought and meditative state of mind, and I hope you do too. Just sit alone and get as high as possible. Hold in those hits of chronic on your low tolerance until your belief of lasting that extra second overrides your fear and doubt of having to cough it out. I was feeling like I started to get into something that no one had thought or believed before, but I knew these things were true. It's not like alcohol that numbs my reality. I must be expanding my perception somehow. I started Googling marijuana thought, spirituality, philosophy. I found Alan Watts' article, Psychedelics and Religious Experience. As I read each line, tears came rushing to my eyes in the amazement of such an exact understanding. Time slowing, awareness of relativity. He writes, events that we normally call opposite are interdependent. As this awareness becomes increasingly intense, you realize that you yourself are polarized with the external universe in such a way that you imply each other. So through my own subjective experience, I'm realizing objective truth, using this tool, but it's illegal, and I can't cry, or my parents will hear, and what will I tell them? I'm only 17 years old at the time. It was the most significant moment of my life. The writing and research continued, and the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas was found. I realized finally that these thoughts correlate with all religions too, and that this gospel, being more in tune with my thought than any other, must also be the most legit. There are so many good quotes, but here's one. The earth and the planets surrounding it will pass away, and everything will become new. Consider this, in the beginning you were organized as one body. But when you became two, the illusion of separateness entered the physical plane, and now you are many and this illusion abounds. Listen to what I am saying. You must become a solitary person before me if you wish to dwell on the new planets and the new earth which I will create. Those who are enlightened will understand what I'm saying. As my research encompassed other faiths, I found sitting alone high isn't that different than leaving society like Jesus, Buddha, and Muhammad all did, in terms of introspective truth. I started to talk to my friends about it, and as I explained some of the writing, a friend told me it sounded like the philosopher Hegel, who wrote about phenomenology, the study of consciousness and objects of direct experience. She was referring to my idea of this 1, 2, 3, where 1 and 2 are opposites, and 3 is its accordance. But then the 3 becomes a new 1. And Hegel calls it a dialectic. He says, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. I think this is a good time to start describing my most intense experiences. Do you know about the vortex? Terence McKenna's chrysanthemum before blasting into DNT space. And the tunnel and near-death experiences, and a neuroscientist's theory of the mind wrapping up the infinite in a finite way. You become it if you focus, and after I did, I immediately wrote, maybe there aren't two sides like conditioned and non-conditioned. Maybe I'm realizing one and the other. Whoa, it's the paradox, I'm writing the opposite. I later even felt like I was on this authoritative level where talking to spirits was possible. In my most visually vivid experience, and this is all on weed, I focused on sound and became surrounded by these hand or arm tree-looking things, and I was all of them at the same time, and I felt simplified like DNA. In my most vivid vortex experience, the arm or spiral of the vortex was made up of things that look like X chromosomes. Are these things hallucinations? My intuition told me no. How could this be an illusion when my thoughts correlate with these visually so nicely? It turns out my feeling was correct when I found this picture of inner ear hair cells that take sound and turn into electrical signals that go to our brains. I was stunned first viewing the image that consolidated two separate visual experiences into a scientific explanation, showing me that I can exist outside of my brain to the limits of my body and probably can be brought out into the energy that's been surrounding me ever since I've existed. But besides getting high, I wanted to find a numerical pattern associated with 1, 2, 3. My pre-cal teacher yelled at me for not paying attention as I drew out dashes just like these, thinking it would help me find this pattern. Then a few weeks later, I heard a student mention the Fibonacci sequence, where two numbers come together to create a new number a lot like Hegel's dialectic, and the pattern makes a vortex. Sleep with me now and then. a chart to help explain how the dialectic and the Fibonacci sequence work together. As thoughts enclose to form memory, the present moment must think back to the previous moment before it understands their relationship, and then creates the new moment, which then becomes an opposite with the previous, creating a new accordance, and on and on and on. This is how our thoughts move in time, as Hegel spoke of it, and as the Fibonacci sequence is shaped. It works with geometry. 2 points make a line, 2 lines make a plane, 2 planes make space, opposites becoming equal in higher dimensions. In my experience, I've seen how one moment of space becomes opposite with the next, and then brought together to form this experience of time. I said, the situation itself is purely situational. Only when it changes does it provoke a meaning, which is our understanding of time. Similarly, with my perspective of time and space, or thoughts, then your perspective of time and space, or your thoughts, our thoughts can join perspective in an idea of love and understanding of the reality of the present moment. We can actually become that solitary person that Jesus spoke of. The DMT beings told one of Strassman's volunteers that people are made of many layers, and my experience with the vortex has shown me these layers of my and of our reality. But now it's time for us to simplify, to come together. It is why I made this video, and how I taught my friends to high write. And there's so much more to know, like, what about this torus shape that I've been experiencing lately that my friend wrote about? Is it a magnetic field? And what will these DMT beings end up communicating to us once we start being able to not be so amazed whenever we're around them? And if you have no clue what I'm talking about, I'm sorry the media is so unconcerned. But as Terence McKenna said, one day, psychedelics will do for psychology what the telescope did for astronomy. But in the meantime, I hope for you, you continue seeking.